times there. And the question is, well, with 2 back-to-back wins, more pole positions than either of the McLaren drivers this year, which is crazy. 6 pole positions for Max this year. Can he close that gap? It has been closed before. Sebastian Vettel in the past. Can he do it? You guys in the poll think yes, he can. Just 56% of you think he can do it. 44% of you think no, he cannot. And I think he can't do it. There we go. I don't think he can do it. You can hope that he can do it and never say never, because who knows what the McLarens can do. We've seen them make multiple mistakes now. How will Oscar Piastri bounce back, of course, heading to Singapore? Will he be able to do that? And will the McLaren be strong? I still predict that these last 2 race weekends have fallen into that perfect window of operation for the Red Bull. I've said it before, if you've tuned into the watch-alongs, which I'm sure those of you that are listening now have done so. The Red Bull has a fundamental weakness this year, and that is in the medium to high-speed corners. It is when there is more downforce required on the car at those tracks, the Red Bull becomes a liability. In relation to the McLaren, anyway. And sometimes it's slower than the Ferrari and the Mercedes. And it just can't look after its tyres. Simple as. The last 2 race weekends, we've had literally negative degradation. I mentioned it yesterday in the race stream that we were seeing Max go quicker and quicker and quicker, arguably every single lap. And that shouldn't be possible. We should see that while the car is becoming lighter because it's burning off the fuel load that it's got in from the start of the race, that should be negated by the degradation in the tyres. Whether it be from the abrasiveness of the circuit or whether it be from just temperatures. And we've seen in Monza and in Baku the last 2 races where we've had drivers get quicker and quicker as the tyres have got older and older as the race goes on. That's ridiculous. We saw Esteban Ocon go the whole race distance basically yesterday, barring 2 laps on the same set of hard compound tyres. And that is where Max and Red Bull have been strong all season. And they are in particularly low downforce circuits as well. We saw him at Suzuka, where you run probably a medium downforce setup there. You don't run necessarily low downforce, but you run medium downforce. You don't stick a load of downforce on there because you still want top speed and to be difficult to overtake down the main straight, which is where the primary overtaking spot is. That was newly relayed. That was a newly relayed track surface in Sector 1, which is the Senna S's, where that is where pretty much all of the load is on the tyres, and that's where we see the abrasiveness and the degradation occur. Because that was relayed, we saw none of that. He won it. Out-qualified and outpaced the McLarens, and it was difficult to overtake there. Saudi Arabia, he finished second, qualified on pole. That was also a more medium to low downforce package, really. And yes, he fell behind Oscar Piastri once Piastri obviously had to give that position up to Piastri. But he was strong there again because there was no degradation on the tyres. Went strong there. Miami, there was more degradation this year. More so the temperatures, and he struggled there, but he still did well, and obviously got into the lead there. So that's one in the past where we have seen tyres. As the years have gone on, the tyre selection's got better at Miami, but the Red Bull's always done well there. And then we look at the last 2 race weekends. No degradation, shock horror. He's pole position in both of those and wins the race comfortably because he's got no challenge from the McLarens, who their advantage isn't in the top speed. They've been slowest in the speed traps for the majority of this year. So the answer is, can he win between now and the rest of the season? Yes, he still can, but I think he's only going to win probably Vegas and where else have we got? Vegas, maybe Mexico, because we always see that be a boring one stop as well. And it's quite a unique circuit because you're not necessarily running low downforce, you're running the highest downforce package spec that you can run, but because the air's so thin, it's pretty much a low downforce package setup anyway. That's how it translates to. So there's going to be no deg at Mexico. There's going to be probably no deg in Vegas as well because we know it's cold and because a low downforce setup is required. That's where the Red Bull comes into its own. He can't do that at Qatar. He can't do that in Abu Dhabi. Maybe he can do it in Abu Dhabi, but the thing is, in Abu Dhabi, the tyres do degrade there, and you do have to be careful of the temps. Singapore, he's not going to be strong at, I don't think. USA, he's not going to be strong at, and Brazil. Yes, we know it goes well there, but that Red Bull this season is not going to be better than the McLarens at Brazil, in my opinion. So that's my logic as to why I think Max Verstappen, if the McLarens don't collide into each other and have multiple DNS between now and the end of the season, why he won't win this, because he's not going to win the last 7 races of the season, just because of the nature of those circuits. There's not enough of them that fall into the Red Bull's strength. And it's not to say Max isn't strong at those tracks, because we know he is. Singapore's the only track on this calendar where he hasn't won yet, which is crazy considering how many wins he has in this regulation set. I think I saw that he has more race wins combined than the rest of the field at the moment. So yeah, he's been completely dominant in this era, but this season it's just a bit too far. There's too many tracks that they just haven't fundamentally made a good Red Bull car for Max. But we've seen it multiple times this year when the car is in that right window for him. He gets pole position and wins the race pretty much. So yeah, but I'm hoping that he will actually get involved. What I am hoping is that there's enough track, and I'm thinking is that there's enough tracks remaining. As I said, 2, maybe 3, maybe Interlagos. He might be able to get something out of Interlagos, especially if it's raining. But I think with the nature of the corners there and the higher speed corners, yes, there's a couple of low speed corners at Interlagos, but I think for the most part, the McLaren will be able to pull out enough of an advantage for the first sector and the first half of the second sector to get ahead of Max and beat him. But I think there's a couple of circuits here, as I said, Mexico and Vegas, where he can properly mix it up and get in between those McLarens, which is going to make it spicy for the end of the season. For the championship. Jack, in your opinion, Max can win his 5th this season. It's not impossible to claw back, but it's a massive gap even to Lando with 7 to go. Figures between Oscar and Lando still. Yeah, I think ultimately it's out of his hands. That's because I think mathematically, if Verstappen wins every race between now and the end of the season, including sprint races, and Oscar finished 2nd in every single one of those sprint races, he would still lose the championship. From what I've seen, some quick maths. So it is technically out of his hands. Norris and Piastri, they win every single race between now and the end of the season. They're champion. Even Norris, who's 25 points behind, because there's enough of a deficit for him to... There's enough points for him to close down that gap and get ahead. So for those two, it's still within their control. Max, it's just... Yes, it's in his control, but it's still a little bit slightly outside of his control. So, yeah. I think Vegas is 100% going to be a Merc Red Bull battle. Mexico, I'm not sure. Depends on the weather. If it's hot, then McLaren will be ahead of Red Bull. Yeah. Anywhere, put it this way, guys, on the calendar. Anywhere there will be a requirement for tyre management, Max will struggle in the Red Bull. It's as simple as that, really. And that is pretty much any circuit that has got a number of corners and requires a bit more downforce, i.e. Singapore. It gets very hot there. You still have to be careful with your tyres in Singapore, but it's more so the nature of the corners. The more cornering that is required. It falls into McLaren's strength rather than Max's strength. The thing is as well is that Max supposedly that Red Bull, yes, while they've said they've done something with the brakes which has made the car better, it's the low downforce setup and the low downforce rear wing in particular that is for some reason, well, not for some reason, but it's made it more pointy, and we know Max Verstappen likes a pointy car, and it makes it nicer for him to be able to drive. But the big factor is, as I said, the last 2 races have been little to no degradation at all. Negative degradation. We've seen these cars go quicker and quicker as the tyres have got older, which is ridiculous. Surface temperature of the track is playing a big role in this whole season. Yeah, and that's the thing. So Singapore will probably be hot. It could be wet. Suppose it is rumours it could be wet. But Singapore generally is a very hot race, isn't it? Austin is always a very hot race, as we know. Mexico is a hot race, but it's always an easy one-stop. So I don't expect there to be issues there. Brazil is normally a 2-stop race if there's no rain. So that's going to be a difficult one. Vegas, we know, is a one-stop normally, but could be different this year. Qatar will be a two-stop as well, because it's just such a... It's almost like a go-kart track, to be honest with you. It's a motorbike track, isn't it? But that's primarily it's what it's been created for. So, yeah, lots of corners there, lots of high speed to medium speed corners, which doesn't fall into the strengths of the Red Bull. It falls into the lap of the McLarens. And then Abu Dhabi is similar as well. There is normally... I think we have seen one-stops in the past, normally at Abu Dhabi, but the surface temperature really spikes up there as well, even in the evening, so... I don't understand why mentally he already seems to have given up on the championship much earlier in the season. I think his mind is on his next move, either F1 or his sabbatical. What, Max? I think he just knew in himself. I mean, he's been around the block enough times. He's a 4-time world champion. He knows when he's got a car that's suitable enough to win a championship. And even right now, he probably is sitting there going, there's not enough tracks where our car falls into the strength of the car. So if we had 7 more race weekends or 6 more race weekends where they were like Italy and Baku, where there's long straights and it's a low downforce setup that's going to be prioritized and there's not going to be that much emphasis on tyre degradation, then yeah, he would feel very, very probably confident about his chances. But I think even now he's probably thinking, nah, there's a couple of tracks maybe will be strong, but it's pretty much McLaren's to lose from here, and that's probably what his outset will look like. But never say never. Stranger things have happened in F1, of course.